Did you know that Shirley Jackson, a renowned American writer, experienced a series of paranormal events that deeply influenced her life and work? Cue Eerie chime sound effect. Back in the 1950s, Jackson, along with her husband Stanley Hyman, and their 4 children, found themselves in the quaint town of Bennington, Vermont. Play suspenseful build-up music. Their new abode, an old house, was to become the stage for a series of unexplainable events. Cue the sound of wind howling. Not long after they'd settled in, the family began to notice peculiar happenings. Ghostly footsteps echoed through the corridors that add sound of slow, echoing footsteps. As if invisible entities were taking midnight strolls, everyday objects seemed to have a will of their own, shifting places without human intervention. Cue sound of objects moving subtly. Doors would slam shut abruptly, startling the household. Include the sound of slamming doors. This wasn't just the creaking and settling of an old house. Play sound of old house creaking. It felt different. It felt otherworldly. These occurrences were just the beginning of what would become a haunting experience for the Jackson family. End with a sharp, suspenseful sound sting. As time passed, the paranormal activities in the Jackson household only grew more intense. The once sporadic and subtle disturbances evolved into a near-constant barrage of inexplicable events that left the family on edge. Ghostly footsteps that once echoed through the quiet corridors began to sound more pronounced, as if heavier and more determined. Objects that previously shifted slightly from their places began to move more noticeably, sometimes even when the family was watching. The lights in the old house started to flicker intermittently, and then with an unsettling regularity. The unsettling dance of shadows and light created an eerie atmosphere that was hard to ignore. This wasn't like the comforting flicker of a candle or the playful shadows cast by a fireplace. It was different, inexplicable, and it sent chills down their spines. Adding to the uncanny ambiance were vague, indistinct shadows that seemed to lurk in the corners of rooms. These weren't the ordinary shadows cast by furniture or household objects. They were amorphous and elusive, appearing and disappearing without any apparent source of light. The family could never quite catch them in focus, but they knew they were there, watching, waiting. The atmosphere in the house grew increasingly heavy, as if the air itself was charged with an unseen energy. It was a palpable sensation that pressed on them, making the air feel denser and harder to breathe. This unseen force seemed to seep into their bones, causing a constant, low-level distress that was hard to shake off. The Jackson family tried to rationalize these experiences to find logical explanations for what they were experiencing. They conducted investigations, examined the house's history, and even consulted with local experts. But no matter how hard they tried, the cause remained elusive. The strange occurrences continued unabated, seemingly independent of their attempts to understand or control them. The notion of a haunted house gradually took hold, and the family found themselves living in a constant state of unease. The paranormal manifestations became a part of their daily lives, something they had to learn to live with. And though they sought answers, they found none. Despite their best efforts, the family could not find any rational explanations for these strange occurrences. Paradoxically, these troubling experiences also served as a powerful source of inspiration for Shirley Jackson. At the heart of her stories, there was always a blend of the ordinary and the extraordinary, the mundane and the supernatural. These seemingly contradictory elements were, in fact, reflections of her own life. The haunted house in Bennington, the eerie shadows, and the inexplicable phenomena that became part of her daily existence found their way into her narratives. Jackson's sensitivity to the supernatural, far from being a handicap, became her greatest asset. It allowed her to perceive and capture the unseen, the ethereal, and the mystifying in a way that was both authentic and unsettling. Her stories resonated with readers precisely because they were rooted in her personal experiences. They were not mere figments of a writer's imagination, but the expressions of a mind grappling with the unexplainable. Her tales of horror and fantasy were not just about ghosts or haunted houses, but about the fear of the unknown, the dread of the inexplicable. They explored the psychological impact of these experiences, the anxiety, the distress, and the sense of being trapped in a reality that defies understanding. Moreover, Jackson's stories often reflected her resigned acceptance of her paranormal encounters. The characters in her narratives, much like herself, found themselves living with the supernatural, unable to escape or explain it. This added a layer of realism to her fantastical stories, making them all the more chilling and relatable. In her writing, Jackson did not merely narrate paranormal events. Instead, she delved into the human psyche, exploring how individuals react when confronted with the unknown. Her stories were as much about the human mind as they were about supernatural phenomena. Jackson's experiences in the Bennington house did not just shape her narratives, they defined her unique style. Her stories were not only compelling, but also deeply personal, reflecting her innermost fears and anxieties. As she once said, "I delight in what I fear." She channeled her fear into her writing, stirring the same emotions in her readers. Shirley Jackson harnessed her fears and channeled them into her work, creating a unique blend of reality and fantasy. Her stories, though woven around the supernatural, were firmly rooted in her lived experiences, making them a vivid and haunting reflection of her life. Haunted by the unexplained, Jackson sought to understand the nature of the paranormal phenomena that plagued her. Shirley Jackson's life had become a maze of mystery, filled with unseen entities and unexplained events. This wasn't just a writer's curiosity, it was a desperate need for comprehension, a yearning to unravel the inexplicable happenings that had become part of her everyday existence. In her quest for understanding, Jackson plunged headfirst into the study of the paranormal. She delved into volumes of literature on the subject, absorbing theories and accounts of similar phenomena. Her thirst for knowledge was insatiable, and she found herself consulting with experts in the field, hoping to find someone who could shed light on her haunting experiences. Jackson also ventured into the realm of spiritualism. She participated in sessions, reaching out into the ethereal plane in an attempt to communicate with the entities that seemed to have claimed dominion over her home. Perhaps she thought if she could converse with these unseen presences, she could negotiate peace, or at least gain some insight into their intentions. Yet, despite her relentless pursuit, Jackson's efforts bore no fruit. The answers she sought remained just out of reach, hidden behind a veil of spectral silence. Every lead led to another dead end. Every theory crumbled under the weight of her experiences, and every session ended in disappointment. This lack of answers only served to intensify her anxiety. Her attempts to understand had been an attempt to regain control, to bring order to the chaos that had invaded her home. But the more she sought, the more elusive the truth became. It was a game of cosmic hide and seek, and she was always it, never quite able to grasp the spectral hand that was forever out of reach. The more Jackson delved into the paranormal, the more she realized that the supernatural didn't adhere to the rules of the natural world. It was a realm of mystery and enigma, a dimension that defied explanation and laughed in the face of reason. And so despite her best efforts, the true nature of these supernatural occurrences remained elusive. Despite the fear and distress, these experiences became an integral part of Shirley Jackson's literary legacy. Shirley Jackson, a name that has become synonymous with gripping tales of horror and fantasy, was not just a writer. She was an individual who lived the very experiences she penned down, giving her work an unmatched authenticity. The strange occurrences that filled her days and nights seeped into her stories, adding a chilling reality to her narratives that resonated deeply with her readers. Her encounters with the inexplicable didn't just shape her stories, they carved out an entirely new perspective on the genre of horror and fantasy literature. Jackson's writing was not merely about blood-curdling screams and monstrous creatures. It was about the fear of the unknown, the dread of what lurks in the shadows, and the terror that grips when ordinary objects seem to take on a life of their own. And her readers felt it. They were not just reading a tale, they were living it with her, experiencing the eeriness of a shadow that wasn't there before, the chill of an unseen presence, the unnerving slam of a door in a deserted room. Jackson's writing was a mirror to her life, a life that was as fascinating as it was fearsome. Her sensitivity to the supernatural, her encounters with the unknown, and her fearless exploration of these experiences in her writing have made Shirley Jackson an enduring figure in American fantasy literature. Her stories continue to be read and revered, their chilling narratives still sending shivers down the spines of readers decades after they were first written. But her legacy extends beyond her writing. The house in Bennington, Vermont, where she lived and experienced these supernatural phenomena, remains a monument to her life and work. The echoes of her experiences still reverberate through its corridors, the lingering presence of the inexplicable still felt by those who dare to visit. The house is not just a building, it's a testament to Jackson's life, her struggles, and her extraordinary talent. Shirley Jackson's life was a testament to the power of the human spirit, her writing a reflection of her resilience. She faced the unknown, the inexplicable, and the terrifying, not with denial or defeat, but with acceptance and courage. she chose to channel her experiences into her writing, leaving us with stories that continue to captivate, thrill, and terrify. In doing so, she has left an indelible mark on the world of literature, her name forever etched in the annals of American fantasy and horror writing. Her stories continue to inspire, her experiences continue to intrigue, and her legacy continues to endure. Till this day, the legacy of Shirley Jackson continues to captivate and haunt us, just like the presences that once haunted her.